came Aeroflot Open a couple of years ago, several years ago, and I described like making the port rating before the game that in his chess education, one thing is missed. He's not playing any kind of dynamical chess. He tries to avoid any kind of messy positions. He's very, very classical educated. And I think this game would depend on the point if Magnus will manage to create kind of mess on board, or Pragg will slowly squeeze through maybe slightly worse position to kind of style he's used to play. Therefore, yeah, I think Magnus' choice of e3 move, avoiding of all kind of scimitarish typical openings, trading half of the pieces, telling the same. So he wants to get as more pieces as possible, as more unstable structure as possible. We clearly will see or hanging pawns or isolated pawn pretty soon. So now all depends on Magnus' choice and Pragg's style of position or not. Because some types of chess, it's not easy to play for Pragg.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there. Actually, when I lost to Pragg when he was 12, I was actually better for most of the game. I turned down a few draws, but it was an endgame, very technical. And he was great there, using his classical education. But I played him recently last year, and I actively tried to make it more dynamic. And he was very, very uncomfortable. And actually, that game, I was a move or two away from winning. So, yeah, I think he's definitely still has some weaknesses, which he will paper over the next few years, and meanwhile Magnus trying to keep as many pieces on the board in order to head for those dynamic quarters. So a couple of trades so far. This is still quite a well-known position, and the usual move here is knight takes pawn in the center just to ensure black has an isolated pawn, something a bit long-term. But Magnus, I was about to say, I just have a feeling he was going to recapture it with his own pawn. And this is exactly the same pawn structure we saw earlier today between Kostyuk and Magnus. But their colours were reversed. And this time, though, white is slightly more active than Kostyuk was in that situation.
I expect delivery bishop on g5, knight on e5. Magnus wants to be on the pressing side. He wants to go more central, and clearly he wants to use the advantage of the first move. So this is the symmetry, but compared to the game versus Kostyuk, he didn't spoil a single tempo in the position.
Wow. And you were talking about symmetry there, and I was going to say the top move is actually to copy white. And you can see Praggnanandhaa, he knows his stuff, and he's following suit.
Yeah, everything is symmetrical pretty much, apart from the placement of a couple of bishops. So, yeah, Magnus, meanwhile, taking control of the only, well, one of the only open lines in the position. And will Praggnanandhaa copy, try and trade a set of rooks off on this open file, or will he bring his light-squared bishop out? Quite a fair amount of choice here. No right or wrong answer, but either way, roughly balanced position. And it will be interesting to see how Magnus tries to outplay his young rival in such symmetry. It's not going to be easy. Such positions do have a reputation of being very, very balanced.
Yeah. How strong is young Pragg in online rapid? You know, what do we know about him in this format?
I mean, judging from the Challengers Tour last season, from where he qualified for this Champions Chess Tour, he's great. Yep. I mean, he's very good. Up until that point, I was a bit unsure. He seemed not quite at his same level over the board, I think because he is classically trained. But online, especially over the last 6 months, I think he's been playing much, much better. And in the Challengers Tour, it took him a while to warm up, but in the finals there, I think he beat Vincent Keimer in the final 3-0. He just overpowered most of his young rivals there. So impressive player in general. I think the online-offline thing doesn't affect him so much. The young generation, they've grown up with online chess. They're pretty much accustomed to it at this point.
Is he basically the best 16-year-old in the world?
Probably. But
because Abdusattorov and Keimer are a bit
17.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're seniors.
And Firouzja is 18, Esipenko 19. So we're talking 16.
Stop it, Kaya. You're making us feel old.
I know. Well, I feel old, David.
No, they're very good. And I'm sure we'll hear those names for the next 10 years, battling for ascendancy.
And a lot must happen in those years. 16, I mean, I know these players become grandmasters when they're 12, 13, but still, a lot must happen in those years leading up to when you turn 20, in your teens, late teens.
You need stability, you need focus. I mean, some of them might continue education. I guess at this point they're pretty much focused on professional chess, but they might choose to do other things. You never know at this age. I feel guilty sometimes we put so much pressure on their shoulders. We expect so much from them because they're so good already, but yeah, anything can happen. Who knows where they'll be in 5 years' time?
And it's very unique in chess, it seems, as well, because you become such a great player at such a young age. In many other sports, you're usually into your 20s before, you know, pressure starts to be put on your shoulders, right?
Yeah, and that's why they have such good support networks around them. I guess you saw Ramesh as well in that interview, Kaya, and yeah. They have great people just keeping them balanced, keeping them...
Yeah.
That's also the opportunity to choose your life path for the future. As younger you do it, it's easier because then you can concentrate on one thing. And you know that this is your goal, and you continue, like you're following your star. As younger you do this, as easier in the future to make any kind of progresses. And of course, all the guys have the supporters around.
Yeah. Well, and obviously from country to country, there's differences, cultural differences as well, right? So, well, Russia, for example, there's been a big discussion over the last month with the very young ice skater, 15 years old, competing in the Olympics, and there was controversies around it. But in Russia, is it more okay to start, you know, going professional at a very young age?
I think so, because Russian system is trying, a little bit similar to China's system, trying to define the talented guys in every type of the sport as younger as possible and to give them support. Yeah, you've been talking about Kamila Valieva with some ice skating rumors behind, and it's always tricky when you're so young because you really depend on the people around. So you can't take your own solutions. But in Russia, there is the system which helps you to choose, to decide to do something. That's true.
But how much autonomy do you have in some countries, like I'm thinking Russia? So, for instance, you're discovered as a fantastic chess player. You know, how much autonomy do you have to kind of go, hang on a second, I don't want this? No.
I think you never say no. If you're discovered as a talented player, you always have to remember that Russia is a 150 million country, and we are fighting for kind of light in the future with different opportunities. If you are getting this opportunity from the sport, you never say no. Maybe after some achievements in life, after some career goals achieved, you already start thinking, okay, maybe education, maybe doing this, doing that, some investments, changing the direction of your life. But in the beginning, of course, you have sport and you have your goal and you are talented, you realize this, and that helps you to be special, to be different compared to, let's say, general society.
Yeah.
How old were you, Yevgeny, when you decided that chess would be the main focus of your life?
I became Russian and world champion under 10, then European champion under 12 and 14. So basically, in my family, it was decided quite early. I had different problem with my career because I was born in a very small region and it was tough to get any kind of support. And since age of 16, I had to work for myself. I mean, to have a chance to travel, to have a chance to get coaches, and it's different. I'm pretty old. Yeah. David.
No, you're not.
So back then, after 90s, like middle of 90s, it was different. Recently, system improved, giving some sponsorship to talented guys.
Even outside sort of Moscow and for the whole country.
Yeah, even in regions. Back then, in my time, when I was growing up, becoming grandmaster, I became grandmaster, beating Viktor Korchnoi in age of 17, and it was something special. Age of 17 grandmaster. Now they see, we're 17. Yeah, he has to retire already.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that, right? They're becoming grandmasters at such a young age. And Magnus Carlsen, with a smile on his face a few seconds ago, having a good time. What's happening in this game? I mean, the bar is roughly to the middle. Is it looking good for the young 16-year-old?
And it actually has all been played before. It was played by Liam Le and Vidit last year.
Okay, and how did that game end, Ivanka?
It ended with Vidit winning, but it was a rapid game, so the game might have been decided later on rather than out of the opening.
Okay, so Black won in that game.
Yep.
Okay, meanwhile, I was going to say the position hadn't changed too much. It was still symmetry for the last few turns, both sides just getting ready for the action, centralising their pieces. But now the pawn structure has changed slightly. So white has parted with the bishop pair. Black is the one with the bishop pair now. But black's pawn structure on the queen side, on that left side, is a bit compromised. You could imagine white bringing a knight round, parking it in front of black's pawn, the one that has just moved. And, yeah, some potential targets for Magnus later in the game. I guess this is just his strategy, to imbalance things slightly and hope that later on he can go for the right piece trades, maybe outmaneuver Praggnanandhaa. But, Yevgeny, you talked about his strengths, his weaknesses, the young Indian. Do you think this position suits those strengths?
At least he's not under the attack. By the way, I have to mention that it is the day-to-day of b3 and b6 squares. So we often see the queens on the queen side, actually on the left side. And previous game with such a queen, Magnus managed to get a mate, to deliver the mate to Kostyuk. We will see what's happening.
Yeah, in that game, white was the one with the queen on this side of the board, and then black switched the play to the other side. So will we see maybe Magnus try and switch the play somehow while black's queen's off on an adventure? Maybe white will switch the play later towards the black king. And still takes a while to prepare. The other, maybe more obvious plan would be to bring the knight to the side of the board, hit the black queen, and then later on try and park it in front of the black pawn. This would be a kind of outpost where black's pawns cannot challenge it. And also a long-term weakness on this square. But for now, black is fine. Dynamically, there are compensating factors for this weak backward pawn. This guy, though, I think will be on Magnus's sights for the next few moves.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I like your last plan, David, because to me that's very thematic, because I'm kind of looking at that pawn structure and going, hang on, I recognise that one. It's very similar to like the kind of pawn structure I'd get from the Caro-Kann, which I love, by the way. If you don't play the Caro-Kann, you should.
This opening's a direct transposition from the Caro-Kann, Jovanka, this exact opening. I'm wondering whether that Vidic game was the Caro-Kann itself, because I've had this position, well, basically this position, just a few small differences from your favourite opening. So that's why in chess we've got to study all openings. This game started with one d4, but it transferred over to another opening. And Magnus has gone for this knight move, hitting the black queen. And it'll be interesting to see where the black queen goes, actually. A few choices here for Praggnanandhaa. Yeah, I'm still wondering what Magnus was laughing about. We never find out.
No, but, it was a very interesting point, because I was listening to a podcast talking about play and the effect of play and how it can affect your neuroplasticity. And apparently, if you play and you do something like this and you're not so serious, you lower the stakes, then basically you can actually be a lot more creative in your thinking. Rather than if you are really like high stakes, then you're going to be so outcome oriented, you're not going to be able to just look up and kind of be like Beth Harmon and just think about all those unusual options.
Yeah,
I heard it from a neuroscientist.
Yeah, there's links to chess as well. We mentioned the 7 deadly chess sins earlier, and there is a sin. I'm trying to remember the exact name, but it's where you're focused too much on the results and it causes you to play passively or play for the draw or worry or stress a bit too much when you should just be playing the position in front of you. But then again, you could lose focus if you're doing what Magnus does and laughing and thinking about other things.
After all, chess has to stay as a game and to bring the joy. And looks like Magnus enjoys, and we don't know what he's thinking about. It might be some kind of music he listened today earlier or something like this. It's really often when you're concentrated, something appearing to your mind from a side. But just generally, I think he's enjoying the process, at least today. And looks like it's very easy, and he's now combining both ways to play, switching the rook, same as in previous game, yeah? 6th rank to 3rd rank, and now the queen is under attack, or king. So
he's following sort of a recipe today, Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, maybe because of this he's smiling, actually. He looks like to the mirror, and he sees his game versus Kostyuk. Or
maybe he remembers David's words, because David has told everyone, and I'm pretty sure you also told him during the broadcast, that Magnus, you like your rook lifts.
Yeah, as white, he always lifts his rooks, or he wants to lift his rooks to the 3rd rank, because they are so flexible, as Yevgeny mentioned. It's combining this idea maybe towards the black king, but also it can switch across later towards the other side of the board as well, and team up with its fellow over here. So very, very cunning move there by Magnus, and just because of these two ideas, using this square and using this square, Praggnanandhaa has jumped into the centre, again, this is something Kosteniuk did, right? And this knight does control the 2 squares that the white rook wanted to use. So in that game, Magnus actually pushed a pawn forward, kicking away the opponent's knight. And when that knight retreated, he launched a pawn storm against the opponent's king. So that was with colours reversed, and things are different here. This feels a bit looser than it did against Kosteniuk, but that type of idea might be on Magnus's mind. And
honestly, I'm not sure, because it looks like you can push the knight and then double on c-file, and how do you guard the pawn on c6?
That's a good point.
How can you guard it?
I was looking at the wrong side. I was thinking of the pawn storm like Kosteniuk, like the Kosteniuk against Carlsen game, but you're right. He can switch over this way, and suddenly some real pressure on this file, especially against this pawn. And black doesn't really ever want to trade off this knight in the center, because now after the white bishop recaptures, this knight now is dominated, and this pawn, it's all about this pawn, actually, and there's a nice outpost for later.
Dark square strategy is how I always think in my mind when I get this particular pawn structure.
Why don't you say light square strategy for black here?
Because I have this sin of egoism. I'm not thinking about my opponent.
Yeah, and I guess black has a weakness, white doesn't, so that's the only differential factor right now. So, okay, maybe this one we're expecting. What else can black do? Maybe you can go back this way with the black knight, just try and create some tricks against the white king, but it does look a bit superficial. And, okay, Magnus.
Maybe some crazy answer by f6.
Yeah,
just repeating the white's moves.
Copycat. So these 2 knights are both in the center. Magnus has played it, and you mentioned this one. If white attacks your knight, you don't necessarily need to move it. You can attack the white knight, and this would be crazy. But it's not Praggnanandhaa style to be crazy like this. So he does instead just react to this attack against this knight by dropping back in this way. And actually, we're calling the moves quite well. We're calling the plans. White is ganging up against this pawn. What will we see from Praggnanandhaa here? The computer, I was about to say, might say 0.0, but still a lot of life left right now.
But suddenly it reacts very badly to Magnus's move.
It's reacted on my computer, and I don't see the moves that the engine is suggesting, so I'm going to take a peek. It says black is much, much better. And it says because black can simply play the queen to either the b7 square or the b5 square.
That is not obvious. And it's
not really hidden option. Like simply tell, okay, take the pawn, but I take back, yeah? I take the piece back.
The whole idea is that you get the black queen out of the eye line of the white rook once the white rook captures this pawn. So if you retreat or move to any square, then now, as Yevgeny mentions, takes. And at the very end, bishop takes knight, and this rook has been destabilized and will just drop off on the next turn. So very, very sneaky. Actually, not obvious at all, this move. Just getting the queen off the 6th rank, putting it on one of these 2 squares. And I guess he finds it. Wow. Praggnanandhaa. I was going to say, I guess the reason black is better here is because suddenly this is a bit of a threat. And there's some tension along this diagonal. White's king slightly airy now that you've pushed some pawns.
And there's another problem. The knight can actually come to the e6 square and starts looking at the isolated pawn.
Yep. Oh, me and my arrows again. Just getting confused there, but you're right, Jovanka. Lots of moves here for Magnus to worry about. This pawn push, this knight retreat, and in some variations as well, maybe a sacrifice even on this square. But yeah, it's not easy now for Carlsen.
I just asked myself, how is it possible? How possible to find queen b7 generally? Like, this move, first you look for some defensive move, then you perhaps look for some captures. But then this intermediate move or kind of silent move comes, queen b7, giving the tempo for the opponent. And the answer is perhaps is easy. There is no other option. He simply calculated all other opportunities and he found this move. So there is no other option. And I remember the advice from Viktor Korchnoi. He gave me many years ago, back in 2005. I complained, we played for the same team, and I complained, Viktor Lvovich, I didn't manage to beat like a weaker opponent. How it possible? And he answered, you simply did not give him the chance to play. Give him the chance to make the mistake. So don't force him to take the only solutions. This is what I remembered from this move like queen b7.
But that's very instructive. You keep saying it, David. He has too many options right now. That's his biggest problem. He has too many good moves.
Yeah, it's no coincidence. That's when the blunders happen. That's when the mistakes happen, when you give your opponent the choice. And I've been there in those exact same shoes, Yevgeny. The number of times I've forced my opponent to play well. Just they only have one move. By process of elimination, they realise every other move is losing, so they have to play that one. And actually, they play a great game, but that's because I've forced them to play a great game. Sometimes you just have to take a step back and just manoeuvre, play a slower game, give them all that choice. And right now, Praggnanandhaa, he did find that great move because he had to, just by process of elimination. And Magnus retreating with his bishop there, just preempting that bishop maybe being attacked. Also, that white bishop now protected at least by white's king. And Praggnanandhaa followed through with Jovanka's idea of dropping the knight back. Black's pieces, Black's minor pieces, the knight and two bishops, they're nicely centralised now. And Magnus, I don't know what his avenue of attack is next. I would be very tempted, to be honest, to just bring my white rook across one square, attack the black queen, and when the black queen moves, just bring the rook back and hope that the position repeats itself. But black is maybe no longer forced to continue repeating. So
I'm sorry to ask. I'm sorry to ask. How am I losing in case I grab the pawn, knight takes c6?
Ooh, good question.
Ooh,
there is a pawn up for grabs.
First of all, I want, I'm hungry. I want to eat the pawn on c6.
Is it hungry or greedy, Yevgeny? So
both.
Okay, so taking this pawn, after the black knight retreated, taking this pawn, I guess the most obvious move is to take this bishop with check, get a bit of time. And now, how can we profit from this knight temporarily being a bit clumsy? There is a threat in the position if black does nothing of jumping in with a check. And no matter which way black captures with the queen or the rook, suddenly this rook would be up for grabs and white wins material. But black does have half a move. Because
Knight
one move.
F4, I believe, yeah.
Probably it is, this one. Now, suddenly you protect this rook in one extra way, so there's no tricks. And black does have ideas of jumping into this square, attacking both of the white rooks at the same time. Black has ideas of jumping in with his rook towards the white king. Suddenly we could see like a mirror image of Kostyuk against Carlsen, but Carlsen being on the defensive, suddenly his king being the target in an almost symmetrical position.
Yeah, but then knight e5, I still try to fight a little bit.
I was, just as I was talking, I was wondering what the answer is. And
we're going to find out.
Okay, same idea, but Pragg finds a different way. So I mentioned this one as almost automatic, but Pragg said no. He's going to plonk his knight in here first. So actually, this is an even bigger threat because now it comes with check. And this is very, very clever. That's a huge threat. If you ever try and eliminate this knight, then suddenly it just gets replaced by a bishop, hitting this rook. White's rook is under attack. This knight is a bit loose.
But can you not now return material by the same manner? Just put the knight back into the centre of the board?
In the current position, yep. Maybe you have to bring the knight back, and Magnus has done it just to cut coordination with this rook and this key square on e2. So, okay, let's go back to the players. We might well see some liquidation, some trades now.
I'm extremely surprised by the speed of Pragg playing these moves like bishop takes c5. It's very, very critical position, and he could simply try to think at least for 2 minutes. There are some forks on e2, there are some maybe sacrifices in the position, there are capture on c3. So there are too many opportunities, and he's speeding up by grabbing the knight on e5, simply leading maybe to some, of course, to some compensation by knight d3. But I believe in a guy, but I can't believe that he clearly calculated everything for 10 seconds what's happening on board. Yeah. So maybe partially missing the critical moment. Now Magnus can trade the rooks on c8, play rook c3, and there are no single check on the dark squares. So I think he would feel comfortable. At least pawn up, at least nothing blundered, and game continues.
Yeah, I have a feeling we might see all of the rooks exchange on this square. There we go. And this is a bit of a beast, this knight. But as you mentioned, white is a pawn up. So at some point, white might just want to consolidate, bring this bishop forward, park the king on a dark square, and what's the worst that can happen for white? Probably you just lose the pawn back and it fizzles out towards equality. So you're right, Yevgeny. It's just OK, there we go. The bishop does move forward. The king needed a safe haven away from this diagonal. So it's going to find safety there. And yeah, it's a stylistic thing, Praggnanandhaa. He just wanted to keep things simple, no risk, no big calculations. He just saw, OK, he can get a decent position with this transition with knight d3 and all these moves you mentioned. But maybe there was more.
Yeah, but ending up with pawn down, so, and has to defend. Of course, obviously, opposite color bishops, the light square bishop of black is extremely nice. Pawn on e5 is weak. Knight of white a little bit too far from everything happening on board. However, pawn is pawn, yeah. And in case Magnus would regroup the pieces to get knight back in play, he's favored in the game.
Yeah. So Praggnanandhaa still needs to be energetic to save this game. Yeah, let's go back to the players. I wonder how happy they look. Magnus probably laughing, just enjoying being a pawn up, enjoying the moment. But Pragg, yeah, still some work to do. It's unclear whether he has full compensation. The computer, the evaluation bar, thinks that black is okay here. I would be inclined to agree. It just feels like he's active enough, but the next plan is the important one.
Yeah, but I agree with you. White is able to kind of consolidate a lot more easier, like put the king in the corner, excellent, then move the queen up one square, and then move the knight back, and then...
Yeah. I guess black...
just keep waiting.
Black does have the only passed pawn in the position. Black's central pawn, I was about to say, can push, and now that does prevent white's knight rejoining the action anytime soon. So this kind of combination of black's knight, black's pawn behind it, black's bishop, they do create a bind. This is the type of position where if you talk to the neural network engines like AlphaZero, maybe they'll say, OK, black is doing great because white's knight is dominated on the edge of the board. One bad piece makes a position bad. Who said that? But yeah, either way.
I think that might have been something we
so
coined.
That's definitely a phrase. That's definitely a phrase by an old Russian master.
You're only as good as your worst placed piece.
Yeah. But either way, yeah, right now it's still anything can happen.
Well, one game has finished. Jan Nepomniachtchi has won his game against Alexander Kostenjuk. It's an incredible score for Jan Nepomniachtchi. He lost the first game in the tournament, but after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins and 1 draw. That's an insane score. He is in top of the table with 19 out of 24 possible points. How impressed are you with Jan in this tournament so far?
He's in his style.
Yeah.
With such approach to chess, it's possible to lose, but you clearly one day would convert more. So he's playing in a style he likes. He's very fast. He's creating the problems to the opponents. And seems he's enjoying. When he's on bright side of life, when he's having eager to win from game to game, he's extremely dangerous. This is what I know. I mean, I have maybe the worst score against Nepomniachtchi.
Really?
Yeah, in my life, like my -4 or -5, compared to other top players where I'm not so bad. And I think he's in the position to play with a great mood also for tomorrow. So even he objectively very near to qualify for the quarterfinals.
Oh, definitely,
already.
yeah. And I guess that is the thing with him. He is known to be an emotional player, and that goes for both bad emotions, like in the World Championship match, but also the good emotions when he's playing great.
Yeah, when it's going well, it goes very, very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we saw in the World Championship, when he's not feeling 100%, when he's feeling a bit unstable, then it can go quite badly. So yeah, maybe one of the new favourites for the tournament, Jan.
Definitely. No matter what happens, he's going to be in top of the table after the second day in the preliminaries. In this one, though, can Magnus get 4 out of 4 today? Is there still a big chances for him in this game?
Yet to be seen. It's still pretty much what Yevgeny said. It's black is being a pawn down, and it's not clear what black's next plan is, what his next moves are. But then again, white does have problems untangling, especially deciding when to retreat the white knight, when to bring it back into the action. Because if the knights disappear, maybe the game just slowly glides towards a draw. And black's central pawn as well, still pretty dangerous.
And
I'm just worried that it might turn like a forced draw now after queen trades on c1, because the pawn of Magnus on b3 is kind of hanging in most of the lines. This is what I'm very worried about, and Pragg would clearly grab the pawn on e2.
Do you think Praggnanandhaa wants the draw, though? Do you think he's playing for more?
I don't think so.
No. You think he'll be happy to take that draw and escape from this game? I'm hoping that he plays on. Come on, Pragg. Don't trade the queens. Don't bring your queen down. Deliver that check. And I agree, that one looks like it's pretty much guaranteed to be a draw if the queens do come off, because black will gain the pawn back.
And it is a draw between Artemiev and Duda, the two 23-year-old rivals. They've been rivals since they were kids, and their game ending up in a draw here. So they are finished for today. And how are they doing? Duda's had a little bit of a bad day, hasn't he?
It's been up and down for Duda the whole tournament so far, yet to hit his stride.
Yeah, 2 losses in a row in the start of the day for him, and then 2 draws. So he is now on 8 out of 24 points, currently outside the top 8 who qualifies for the knockout. He's going to have a good day tomorrow to have chances to qualify.
Yeah, and a moment of truth in this game. Is Pragg thinking about the extra money bonus that we've given for the wins?
Yes.
Is he thinking about the fighting chess index, that badge of honor for chess players to be at the top of that fighting chess stats? Okay, he's not taking the kind of easy way out yet. He's just maneuvered his king to a slightly safer square, maybe a light square.
I don't think it was necessary. I mean, I'm not a big fan of that move because that king is 1 square further away from the action.
From the center.
Yeah.
So if the queens come off.
Exactly. Then that king
also gives time for white to escape with king h2. There are no exchange of queens on c1 anymore. And Magnus is getting opportunity to get queen in play finally. We are e5, some jumps possible. Yeah. So after such a long thing, I don't. Just generally, when you're going down to 2 minutes versus 8 minutes, you already have to think how to keep possibilities as easy as you can. And somehow king h7 move is out of this plan.
Yeah, and let's just show the alternative. This queen check would have forced the queens off the board, and this game would most likely steer towards a draw, just because this pawn is under attack. If you move it, the other pawn falls. And most likely, these pawns would disappear at some point. Maybe white can corral and kind of get this black pawn in the center, but this game would definitely fizzle out. And okay, instead, if we fast forward, after bringing the king to the side, this allowed white to escape as well. And now, as you mentioned as well, white's queen getting active and maybe going pawn hunting if possible. That being said, black does have some activity of his own. At some point, black can think about trying to get in with his queen. It's still hard to imagine breaking through to the white king because this is such a good defender, this bishop. It kind of controls anywhere the black knight wants to jump. But then again, black does have some activity with his queen. This pawn as well, if the black knight could find somewhere to move, you could imagine it marching down the board. So still in the balance, but as you mentioned, Evgeny, maybe the practical decision in light of the clock times would have been just to take the queens off and go for the draw.
Mm-hmm. And talking about passed pawns, I mean, he just go for it? Mm-hmm. You know, move the knight out of the way, push that pawn onto a light square.
Which square?
Yes, there was only one, so let's go to the first row. And David has put it up.
Yeah, I mean, this is very tempting to me as well, because you could imagine a situation where white gets greedy, the black knight comes in. Obviously, white will try and stop this, but then there would be some checkmating threats. Okay.
Yeah, queen c5 possible, so you can still keep the control.
Yeah, that's the problem.
At least it's very, very dangerous, and clearly Pragg has no time to calculate all the opportunities. So he must continue by hand, and we will see which intuition is better. There is only one threat on g1 mate, potentially, after the knight replacement, but the queen from a7 grabbing on d4 and controlling g1 squares most often. So now Magnus considers to take the pawn or not to take.
Yeah, is greed good? We've been asking ourselves that a few times now, and white could go 2 pawns up, hitting a 3rd pawn. It's definitely tempting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if your opponent's only got 1.5 minutes, especially if you don't see a threat. We were talking about that earlier, right? You ask your opponent, you ask yourself what your opponent's ideas are. If you don't see anything, why not grab a pawn and hit this pawn in the center? What is black intending?
Queen e3, knight c1, knight e2.
Wow, okay, the long way round. Get round this way, and we're going to find out the truth. And yep, you called it. Process of elimination again after white's queen took this pawn. Black had to bring the queen back, defending its pawn in the center, and also maybe hitting this one.
It was not a blunder from the Magnus side. He's supposed to deliver the knight back to the center by knight b6, knight d5 options, or knight b6, knight c4 options. So he clearly would keep control over the center, and the last piece is out of play for white at the moment is knight. And yeah, this is what I expect him to do.
And with that knight on d5, or the knight maneuvering itself to a different square, I mean, the checkmating ideas that black has on the dark squares are going to be covered.
Yeah, true, because I'm attacking the queen, and knight is not in time to get to e2. So After I move the queen away, I have some time to regroup or to control d2 square by bishop f4. And I'm pawn up. I'm 2 pawns up. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about some extra options like e6 sacrifice and then bishop e5 just coming to the king. Magnus is back in play.
Yep. If the queens come off now, white is most likely going to win. Well, if you can arrange it in a favourable way because of these 2 connected passed pawns. So, yeah, Magnus, he just needs to find a way to re-centralise this knight, maybe re-centralise his queen at some point. And,
but wait one second. I mean, we've been talking about, like, OK, the knight can go on a journey, but there is a threat in the position, which is just to take the pawn.
Yeah, and Anna, I didn't blunder the pawn, but I blundered the next, that there is the perpetual on f3. Yeah?
Right.
Yeah, that's the point.
So, for example, if the white knight steps back, then knight takes pawn and potentially a draw. It's still not 100% clear, but the white king is in a bit of trouble. Maybe you can even take here as black, and white's king is going to be so open, especially on the light squares.
Ooh.
Imagine some trouble here. And, OK, Magnus finds a really flashy way to bring his knight back into the action.
Whoa, look at the bar!
Yeah, is this clever or is this madness? The white knight coming back, trying to use the fact there's a pin on this diagonal, so black cannot take this knight yet.
Why are you not reacting more, David? Is this just the computer going crazy?
We're trying to work it out.
Looks like kind of blunder according to machine, no?
Yeah, it isn't blunder according to the machine.
But maybe it's this exact variation we were showing, just in a different way. Why can't black just step back, take that pawn with his knight in the centre? And this idea of, OK, actually, Pragg finds the best move. I was about to say, Stockfish, the computer, had 3 suggestions there. The move I mentioned, taking that white pawn, would have been fine for black, but this is even better.
Wow. And look at the 16-year-old now. He's, he's bopping his head. He seems to be sensing that this is good.
Yeah, because look at white's knight now. Suddenly, it's kind of threatened. White's knight doesn't have anywhere good to jump. And also, black has this idea of bringing the knight forward later on. This checkmating pattern we showed, black's knight coming to the e2 square and black's queen trying to deliver checkmate to the white king.
And it seems Magnus only has one OK move right now.
Wow, you're right, Kaya. Stockfish confirms it. White's only move to survive and stay in the game is to bring the white knight back to the d1 square, hitting the black queen. Everything else you can pretty much resign.
Is that natural?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the only move.
Okay.
And if you are forced to find the only move, you usually find it.
Okay.
It's like you said, like Korchnoi said, you force your opponent to find the only moves. And the other 2 moves that were suggested there by the computer were nonsensical. Okay. They would have just been huge blunders. So, OK, white's knight. Oof, this is really hanging by a thread now for white. White's knight has blocked the 2nd rank. Black was threatening a nasty checkmate. But look at this, Pragg upping the pace of his moves as well and creating threats on every turn. Yeah, I mean, I didn't react earlier because I was struggling to understand, but now I understand. White's queen is just too far offside. It was just greed. And how do you get her back in time? This looks very good for black now. Well, at least very scary for white.
Also, the bishop on g3 all the time hanging. I can attack with a queen. We are g5 or e1. All the pieces are pinned. Knight on f2 misplaced. And we should never forget about the d pawn. Just imagine for a second that we trade all the minor pieces out from board. Then the d pawn comes. And doesn't matter if you're 2 pawns up in queen endgames or 3 pawns up. As faster your only passer, as better it is. And yeah, you can read Magnus now. He clearly doesn't like the position.
Your queen moved to the 1st row. That looks to me very deadly because it threatens checkmate. And is there a way to prevent, just to prevent this being checkmate? Maybe creating some air for the king, running with the pawn, or it's difficult to see what to do.
I'm struggling to even find a defence here for white, and Magnus clearly struggling as well. As you mentioned, Jovanka, the big threat in the position is the black queen coming down to the 1st rank. There are 2 safe squares actually on that 1st rank, and both of them look deadly.
There is only one potential loft is on h3 for the king, but it will never happen because of bishop f5. Like bishop will give the mate after all.
Or the bishop can trap you and trap the king.
Yeah.
White would love to pick up his queen and teleport it back somewhere to the 1st rank, just to offer some trades or just to create some safety. But no, OK, Magnus does try and create that air for his king. But as you guys mentioned, the only escape square for that white king is up the board on a light square.
8.5 on the bar.
Checkmate is just coming. What happens after black brings the queen down to the 1st rank on the e1 square? It's just I mean, it's just checkmate
It's like
coming.
just game over.
It's just game over.
16-year-old Praggnanandhaa, the youngest player in the tournament against the world champion. This could be a little piece of history in the making.
I think we've cursed Magnus. We didn't follow him today, and then he won all his games. As soon as we followed him,
right.
he's about to lose.
We followed him with Kosteniuk.
Ah, true. But he's about to lose a sensational game now. And there we go. White's queen trying to cover the light squares. That's quite clever. Trying to stop the black bishop from joining the action and trapping the white king. But
but Magnus losing the piece after knight g3, queen e5, and potential bishop f5 check. He's just
that's just game over.
Like the simplest way. First, you have to calculate
40
is the
seconds.
capture.
Yeah, so maybe there are other moves as well, but black's knight going and capturing the white bishop wins on the spot. As Yevgeny points out there are some deadly checks. White's king is just in too much peril. Black could even maybe just push the pawn forward. That would be tempting as well, but knight takes bishop, and look at Magnus. He's realised he's about to lose. At minimum, he's going to lose a knight. Checkmate might be coming as well. No way to save this game. Okay, he takes a pawn, and black has plenty of ways to win this now. You can just move the knight, you can give a check, you can bring the knight back to where it came from.
Any square for a knight works, yeah.
And White's king only has one safe square now. You have to go up the board. That is not going to be safe.
Wow, what a crazy moment, you guys. 16-year-old about to beat Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, and he's just trying to cling on. Magnus has literally got his fingernails now, just clinging onto that cliff edge.
Yeah.
But, oh, wow, what a move. Black cuts the coordination between White's queen and the second rank. And is Magnus about to resign? Is he going to throw in the towel? White's knight now hit by the black queen. And if it moves, there's a deadly check in the corner. It's just game over.
Yeah, game over.
Wow, has he ever won before, Praggnanandhaa, against Magnus Carlsen in any official game?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It's a historical moment, and it's here. Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, loses to 16-year-old Praggnanandhaa. Look at Pragg. He can almost not believe it.
Yeah, he's got to enjoy this moment, and rightly so. He played a great game.